What's up, guys? This is Lewis Wood from King Fantasy Sports. You're listening to the Dynasty Hotseat podcast.
Yes, everybody, welcome back once again to the Dynasty Hotseat. You know what it is already. It's the only Dynasty show out there that is a certified inferno. And today, we're super lucky to have on with us. We got from King Fantasy Sports, we got Lewis Wood over here with us. If you want to find him on Twitter, you can find him at Lewis Wood, FF_UK. You got that right.
Spot on.
Oh, nice. Nailed it. And that'll be underneath here if you're watching the video version of that as well. So you'll be able to see that for yourselves. Lewis, absolute superstar in the game. He's got many, many side hustles, as we were just talking about. One of them is this fantasy game. So Lewis, you can find you obviously at your Twitter handle just mentioned and at King Fantasy Sports. It's a pleasure to have you on. How you doing, mate?
It's a pleasure to be on. Thank you so much, mate. I've been in the game a couple of years now. And this is probably my favorite off season so far, just because of how incredibly insane it's been in these first few weeks. But obviously for us Dynasty players, the off season's the most fun part. So to have everyone else kind of joining in when it's as insane as this has been is very exciting.
Yeah, it's what you like to say to people who just do redraft. You're like, this is what it's like all the time. Like Russell Wilson moves rosters every summer when we play.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's good to see everyone else, having fun with it too.
Absolutely. But yeah, thank you for having me on, man. It's very exciting.
Absolutely, no problem. And we'll just jump right in with segment number one, Lewis, which is just your sort of top tips for all the Dynasty players out there who are listening and everyone about to listen at home. What kind of top tips would you have for people?
Absolutely. So I've got a few written down here, and I actually did a kind of intro to Dynasty series for 5 Yard Rush last summer. So I've included a few bits from that, but also kind of my own personal tips, more sort of generically for Dynasty players than this is a specific player you need to be drafting, because I don't want to give away my secrets. It's always a tough thing about playing fantasy, and writing is, I put out a tweet the other day saying that I think James Conner's entered a huge sell window, and then no one in my leagues want to buy him from me. So it's always a dangerous thing. But the top one, the first one on my list, and it sounds obvious, but it's to know your league inside out. And that doesn't just mean obviously scoring settings and roster settings, taxi squads. It's more about knowing what your position in that league is. How does your roster compare to others? Who tends to value certain positions higher? Can you look back at a track record of actually so-and-so always tends to draft receiver? So-and-so, I've seen them take quarterback higher than I would in a one quarterback league. So I've stocked up a few. Matt Ryan's just been traded. Maybe they'll be interested in getting him for a late first pick because I know that they massively overvalue them. Where are the positions of need across the board? It really helps when looking at trading, which we're going to come to in a second. It really helps to know across the board who is looking for what. It means that you can actually go to people and have a more in-depth conversation when actually I have a strength here and this person has a weakness here. But actually I tend to sometimes put together Google Docs and sheets with different leagues to talk about timelines and to talk about, okay, this person is going to be unstoppable this year. I'm pretty confident, a certain element of randomness in fantasy, but it looks like this is the favorite for this year. But if I'm looking at the windows, I know I can compete next year looking at where my team is. And sometimes it's just about making sure that you have that edge from knowing every single detail about your league and the players that you're playing with to make sure that you can actually pitch things in the right way.
Yeah, I think that is an absolutely brilliant tip. Like, especially the part you said about, being able to take that step back and actually look at your league as a whole and don't just think, oh, I'm going to win every league I'm in. probably not going to happen. So have a look at it and think, am I really actually better focusing in on getting, 23 first round picks, 24 first round picks? Because, I've got a team of really young players and by then they could be ready, but I'm just missing this bit, which I can acquire there.
Yeah.
It's a long-term game. So you have to play it long-term.
Exactly. And even as much as going, okay, I know that I want Breece Hall this year. And I think he's probably my 101. But looking at who owns various picks, I think I only need to get to 103 in order to get him, just because I can understand how my league is probably going to work. And especially looking back at the last few years, and I've played with these people for a long time now. I know the way they draft. I know the way they tend to value players. I know that, if I want to draft Drake London, I've got to get ahead of the person who only tends to draft alphas, and that's the way he tends to rank receivers. You can note these things down. It feels a bit heavy touch, but when you have these things logged and you can look back at historical drafts and understand the patterns of behavior, because at the end of the day, you're playing against other people. You're not just playing against the machine. So you have to understand the way the other people are working.
Yeah, I think that is absolutely fantastic. And what a great idea, actually. I might start doing that, to actually log down, what people are doing. That is a brilliant idea. I'm gonna pick you up on that tip. I'm gonna start doing that myself.
I'm glad you think so. It's something that's really worked for me in the past.
Brilliant. So brilliant start with the first top tip. You got anything else for us?
Absolutely. So my second tip is about trading. And I'm renowned in my leagues for never really sitting still. I'm always looking for a way to improve, because I think if you're not, then you're going to fall behind. But the tip that I have is more about kind of the long-term investment of trading, and it's to never look to win a trade. If I am going to develop a relationship with my league mates, if I'm going to actually kind of nurture a long-term partnership, I need to make sure that when we trade, we are trading fairly and we are spotting needs for each other. We are helping each other's teams to get better. You might find that you can absolutely fleece your league idiot. We've certainly all seen it happen, and it will make you happy very briefly. But that one trade is unlikely to win you the next few years of titles, and maintaining good relationships across the board with your league mates is. So if you actually make sure that you're keeping those relationships strong, because other teams will notice if you're fleecing others for trades, even if you're making good deals with them, and they won't want to move with you anymore. It has to be looking at it as a long-term investment into the relationships and not just looking to win in the short term.
Yeah, I think that's really good. And I think, any trades you end up accepting, that's a win for you.
Yeah.
Because you've decided that is good enough to start with. So instead of worrying about, over, taking it too far, or like, you get things all the time. It's like, yeah, I think this is great, but I just need another second. It's like, no, you don't.
Yeah.
You don't think that. You want another second. You don't actually think that. You just want one. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I've had it relatively recently that someone's come back and said, I think I might want to give this back. And you need to have the confidence to say, hey, I've offered you a really good deal. Like, if you don't want to take it, then fine, but I'm pretty confident that what I've offered you is good. And sometimes the people end up coming back and saying, yeah, I was just playing quite hardball. Like, you're right, we'll make the deal happen. But it's a long-term game. If I absolutely fleece someone today, then in 2 years' time, they're not going to want to make a deal with me. And I am always looking to make deals with people.
Nice. Yeah. Again, like, kind of back to what you said at the start. You gotta know your league mates, and having a good relationship with them can only help things. Yeah. So I love that. Two great tips about knowing your surroundings a little bit. You got anything else for us, Lewis?
I've got two more, and the next one, it's quite a brief one. But as someone who commissions most of my leagues, it is a very thankless job. And this tip is just to say thank you to your commissioner at the end of the year. It can sometimes be a lot more time consuming than I think people realize. And it's a tough job sometimes. Is that, we did a startup draft the other day, and we included the rookie picks in the draft, which means you have to go through and manually assign 36 picks to different people.
Yeah.
That's tough. That's a lot of effort. And people can often only really get into contact with you as a commissioner when something's going wrong. And it just makes a big difference to keeping people wanting to commission for you year after year if you just say thank you at the end of the year.
That is a great tip, too. Just say thanks. And I know, my soon-to-be colleague, who's number 3 on our Hall of Flame board there, Paul Picken. Paul's just recently done that, where he had his big spreadsheet full of kicker names and rookie picks beside them. So bless you, Paul Picken, you're a hero.
You are a hero, Paul. I like Paul. So the final one, and this is actually kind of the main tip that I'll stick to throughout any kind of fantasy that I'm playing, which is that fantasy football should be fun. You might be playing for money sometimes, you might be playing for pride, you might not want to lose against friends you've had for years, but at the end of the day, the reason all of us started doing this is because we love the sport and we love the game. And it has to keep being that. If it's not fun, if you're not enjoying a league, you can leave the league. But in the same way, I think emotionally driven trades can be a really fun thing to do. I know sometimes it's not the best thing in terms of, okay, but the data says I should do this. And say, for example, I'm a massive Rams fan, and I have Cooper Kupp on the majority of my teams. And I think now is probably a good sell window for Cooper Kupp, because I think he's 28 approaching 29. He broke a lot of records this year, but he's unlikely to repeat. His value is as high as it's ever going to be. If you sell him for T. Higgins in a late first or something, that's a winner. I'm not going to sell him anywhere because it makes me way too happy to see him thriving on my team. And I play this because I love playing it. And if something makes you happy while you're doing it, you should do that thing. You should go and get your team's starting quarterback. You should go and get your favorite player. You should trade away the players that you don't like rooting for. You should make it as fun as it can possibly be.
I think that is great. And, that very same happiness factor is probably the same one that got you Cooper Kupp prior to his blow up year last year.
Yeah.
You maybe slightly overdrafted him according to the stats then, but now you're laughing because you followed your gut, you followed your heart. Yeah.
I can tell you that's exactly the case in one league where I sent the rookie 110 for him, which was quite a low price at that point, purely because I was like, I don't have any Rams on this team. I want some Rams on this team. And look at the way it's ended up after all that.
Yeah, and at the time someone's like, oh, Trey Sermon, yes. I'll get right in on that. And then,
unfortunately, I think Trey Sermon had gone by that point in our rookie draft,
dear.
which is quite damning.
That's even worse.
Around the 107, 108 at that point, which is anyway.
Yeah, but no, I think, Lewis, what 4 incredible tips. I'm loving just the positivity that you're exuding as well. Have fun, get to know your teammates, have a good time. Yeah, absolutely love it. So those are Lewis's hints and tips. One of them I'm certainly going to be doing. I'm going to start taking notes of my league mates. That was a great idea. And we're going to jump right in with his mock draft to see what team he can build in part 2 coming right up now. Okay, here we are back in part number 2, and we've got Lewis sitting in the hot seat. Lewis, how's that seat feeling for you?
Yeah, a little bit warm, but we'll see once we get going.
A little bit warm, yeah. We'll get the flames really juicing, I'm sure, after a while. So we got the same format that everyone else is giving a shot at. We got our startup draft. It is a super flex, 12 team, 18 rounds. And just like always, Lewis, we're just going to ask you, in an ideal world, if you were to pick, this is where I want to start, what position would you choose?
So for me, at this point in time, I'd be picking from the 103. In a superflex, I think there's a clear tier of 3 top quarterbacks. So obviously, if I can move as far back into that to make me as early as possible in the second round, then that'd be where I'd want to start from. I think if you can get one of those to build your team around, it makes a huge difference to roster building. Yeah,
I think that's excellent strategy. Because it is superflex, you want one of those top tier quarterbacks, and a position 103, you're definitely going to get it. So let's get right into the draft and let's see which one of those 3 you end up with. So it's not going to be Mahomes. It's not going to be Josh Allen.
So
So
there we.
it's going to be Matthew Stafford from the LA Rams, the Rams fan.
It's going to be Carson Wentz. I just think it's Justin Herbert is the clear choice to start with here. He's currently my quarterback 3 as well, and he has been for a while. But there's a clear tier gap in terms of age, upside, situation. I adore Justin Herbert. I managed to take him in a couple of rookie drafts a few years ago in the late second or early third round. Not because I was particularly a believer in the talent, because I wasn't when he was coming out of college, but because there's such huge upside there that no other, random 6th round running back is going to give you. So Justin Herbert is the obvious pick for me here.
Yeah, Justin Herbert, you gotta love it. Justin Herbert's a weird one for me because I kind of became a fan of him out of college through a way you're definitely not meant to do, but it just worked anyway. I just watched like a couple of YouTube compilations, which is definitely not, but I was like, this guy is unbelievable. And it just clicked with me that he was going to be my guy, and I just drafted him everywhere. So a bit of luck maybe. Absolutely. So let's get Justin Herbert in our team as our first round pick. I imagine we'll see a couple more quarterbacks coming off the board. Yeah, we have Joe Burrow and Kyler Murray, and then the running backs with Swift and Taylor, who seem to be ahead of other people like Najee Harris in most people's rankings at this point. As we started off quite early, so the sneak will come round sort of later in the second round, and we'll see who we've got. So let's pause the draft. And we'll bring up, we got people like Trey Lance and Russell Wilson at the top. Kyle Pitts floating around there as well. Some pretty decent running backs and receivers. Anyone you're thinking about in particular there?
So from my end, I think there's a huge gap in the startup value in running backs. I think if I'm not getting one of those top 3, I'm probably going to wait a little bit, and I'm going to throw some older running backs in there. I'm not a particularly big fan of taking them that early. There is obviously a huge appeal to me of taking Cooper Kupp here. To be honest, I think there's quite an obvious answer, and this is going to then affect the way that I look to build my team. And I'm going to take Trey Lance at the top there. Just in terms of upside, that means that I can have 2 young, potentially fantasy elite quarterbacks to build my core around. I'm not going to have to take quarterback for a while. I don't need to take a quarterback 3 for quite some time, but I think there might be a little tier gap there in terms of Lance's upside and then the others we're going to get. And looking at the wide receivers available, I'm pretty confident someone's going to come back that I'm really happy with as my wide receiver 1.
Yeah, I think you'd be absolutely spot on with that, just because we're up quite soon as well, because the sneaks right around to us right away. So yeah, I think looking in Trey Lance, you've got potentially your 2 quarterbacks for 10 years. How old if quarterbacks are playing to like mid-40s now, what age are they going to be playing with whenever Herbert, like he'll be a young man still. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, the longevity there is great, and like you said, you still have people there like Deebo Samuel still there, Metcalf still there, Waddle still there. Unfortunately, Cooper Kupp isn't, but you got some amazing options at wide receiver. Along with, what? You've still got Justin Fields there. You've still got Matthew Stafford, Deshaun Watson still there.
It's almost tempting to take Fields and then not have to think about quarterback for the next 15 years.
Yeah.
But in terms of value, I think the obvious pick here is Kyle Pitts. But with the news that's come out recently, with the Matt Ryan trade, and with the way the Falcons are trending, whilst I still think Pitts is going to be people's dynasty tight end 1 for quite some time, I think we're actually going to have to wait until year 4 to see the proper elite breakout from him. So it's tempting to take him and say that I would then look to move him, but that's not the way I like to play fantasy. I think what I would probably look to do here, it's tempting to go with Deebo so that I have the Deebo Lance stack, because I do think stacking is a really good way to approach fantasy. But I'm actually going to go with Jalen Waddle, who I think is he really, really showed up in his rookie year. I think that's a trending offense. I quite like Tua, but I'm building a really young core for my team that's going to keep me going for quite some time. But also, I think I might be competitive quite early on.
It sounds like it with this team. And it's weird, ever since Mike McCarthy said go draft Jalen Waddle, every single guest on this show has drafted Jalen Waddle. So his words are ringing in everyone's ears, and let's get Jalen Waddle locked in as our wide receiver one. In the third round, Jalen Waddle, I think you got to be pretty happy with that. As Cal Pitts does ping off the board there almost immediately after, and Debo and Aaron Rodgers and Deshaun Watson, players you would expect to be leaving at this stage, as we have a bit of a wait as we sneak around towards the end of the fourth round. At this stage, are you just kind of taking, this is the player I want, or are you thinking, I need to get a tight end, I need to get a running back, or is it just at this stage, who's the best player?
So what I would probably look to do is to build out my wide receiver core first of all. There is, I think, potentially a few options on the board that really interest me. Like I said, starting with a really young core, I'm probably going to wait to take running back and wait a good few rounds. But looking at, we pick again quite soon.
Yes.
And there is a clear positional advantage here left, as well as locking in a stack that I know this is a young team, but adding George Kittle into that. And making sure that he's actually my dynasty tight end one, because I like the situation better and I adore the talent. As much as I'm a Rams fan, I love watching George Kittle play. He's the clear outlier here in terms of who's there. There's a few wide receivers in the same tier. I'm not taking another quarterback. I'm unlikely to take a running back, but he's a clear outlier here, so I'm going to go with George Kittle.
Yeah, I really like George Kittle there, especially, you've got that, you've got that link now with Trey Lance in your team. And, traditionally, at least for, young quarterbacks, the tight end can be used as like almost a safety net. And George Kittle's always going to be there. He's always open. He can throw it up to him. Yeah, I think they're going to have a really, really nice link up.
Yeah. So looking at it here, this is quite an interesting one because, again, you've got the potential to look at stacks again. So I could look at the Justin Herbert, Keenan Allen stack, but I'm going to go a slightly different way. And in terms of what I was saying previously about, making fantasy fun, we've got a guy on the board who he's been my guy since he came out of college. I liked the way he looked in year one. Very, very young, tied to a quarterback with a lot of potential, and in an offense that might start ascending, although it's difficult to say, just due to the history of them. And that's Elijah Moore. I adored Elijah Moore coming out. I see a lot of Antonio Brown in him. I think he has the potential to actually be flexed out wide, despite being quite small. And I just love watching him play. To get him as my to get him onto a really young roster as my wide receiver 2 behind Jalen Waddle, I think that's a really good core of a team.
Yeah, and for a brief moment in time there, Elijah Moore was on an absolute hot streak, outscoring Jamar Chase, outscoring everybody. Just for those, I can't remember exactly which weeks. Yeah. But you've seen that real boom of, this is how good this guy can be. So you'd be happy if you can get anywhere close to that boom, in the next couple of years. So Elijah Moore, what a great pick in the 5th round.
I'm happy with the way this team's shaping up, and in terms of the way that I'll do my startups, you need to give yourself the flexibility to pivot based off the way that your team is starting to be built. So this is why I'll leave running back a little bit, because I think I'm putting in a really good core here, and a really nice young core of players. That means that actually my window might not be immediate, but it means I can wait on running back a little bit and add them in when I think my team's ready to compete.
Yeah, I think that's generally how I will do it as well, unless, there's somebody sitting that's just too good to, like, for example, we're in the 6th round in my most recent draft I was in. Alvin Kamara was still there at the end of the 6th round. I was like, I have to take Alvin Kamara. I can't not take Alvin Kamara here. So unless there's something like that, I'm quite happy to wait.
So for me here, I think it's between 2 players. I would definitely consider Elijah Mitchell, were I not already stocked up with 49ers. I do think there does come a point where you don't want to have to rely too much on the same team. There's a few players I'm choosing between. Michael Pittman Jr., I really like the talent, and I like drafting alphas, especially with Matt Ryan now in Indianapolis. Amari Cooper is really undervalued for fantasy, and I think his ADP is going to rocket now that Deshaun Watson's in Cleveland. Maybe not for this year with the suspension, but Amari Cooper is someone I really like the talent of. Jerry Jeudy again potentially, but with Russell Wilson in Denver, and the other one I'm looking at actually could be Kirk Cousins, but I think I can wait a little bit on my QB3. I think I'm going to go with Amari Cooper here. He's still relatively young. He's tied to an elite quarterback, and I think it's going to be an ascending offense. He feels like the outlier here in terms of where we're drafting and who's left, and then I don't have to think about wide receiver for a little bit either.
Yeah, I think that's a great shot, especially with him at Cleveland. You have obviously Deshaun Watson when he plays, who knows, but also who else is he throwing to?
Exactly.
So yeah, and Amari Cooper is amazing. So he is just, if you look that good on a team beside, CeeDee Lamb and all these other players, how good is he going to look beside Anthony Schwartz and
Donovan Peoples-Jones? He's the clear one.
So yeah, let's get Amari Cooper in. I think that's going to look like a genius stroke. Coming next year, you see, I got Amari Cooper in the 6th, and he was, wide receiver 5 on the year. So here we are back. Yes,
we're now between 2 players. And I think I am going to take my first running back. I think I'm going to go with AJ Dillon. I like the ascending role in the Packers offense. It's an offense you want to share in. I think Aaron Jones is going to almost be used as a wide receiver going forwards, just due to the lack of receivers they have. And I like, again, pairing quite a young option. The other player I'm considering is still Kirk. But I feel it. Would you mind showing me all the running backs available and then all the quarterbacks available?
Yeah, so
that's all
running backs. You got AJ Dillon, Damien Harris, CEH, Leonard Fournette's there as well. Towards the end as well. And
someone I spotted.
Yeah, and if you just have quarterbacks, you have Kirk Cousins, you got Baker, Matt Ryan, Derek Carr is still there, and then you got a bit of a drop off. To
absolutely
2 other people. Yeah.
You know what we're going to do? We're going to stick with AJ Dillon, and then we're going to hope that Matt Ryan or Derek Carr come back.
Yeah, I think that is a good shot there. So let's get AJ Dillon locked in, and we're hoping not to see any reds. We got there's Kirk Cousins is gone, so we don't want any more reds to appear. There's lots of greens and oranges, which is fine, but we'd love to lock up our quarterback 3. My favorite thing is, Baker's gone, is watching. You never really get to see people drafting. It's always from the other side of the phone. So I love seeing it in person. People do the same kind of things I do, go left and right and decide what to do. It's everyone does that, not just me.
Crossing your fingers and hoping for a certain player.
So you couldn't have asked for anything better. You said, let's hope Matt Ryan and Derek Carr comes back, and right at the top, the 2 are Matt Ryan and Derek Carr.
Let's lock in, just for longevity's sake and for the new weapon he's just been brought in. Let's go for Derek Carr as my QB3.
Yeah, just linking up with his old college mate, Devonta Adams.
Yeah,
let's get Derek Carr locked up.
That's, I'm not going to have to think about quarterback for a long time, and that will probably be, although to be honest, actually in a recent startup, I took Marcus Mariota and Jameis Winston quite late on, and then actually have got a lot of trade interest around them now. So it's always tempting to take a few later on, but
yeah, absolutely, definitely pays to take them later on. I took Rudolph and quite late on, so it's I maybe should have done that. But I think I took Haskins the round after. I think it was bang. It's I'll just take both and maybe one of them, but
it's worth it. It's obviously worth a shot, isn't it? So it seems we're going to end up drafting a heavy amount of 0 running back. We've obviously got AJ Dillon already. I'm intrigued by Tony Pollard and Chase Edmonds, although I'm not convinced Edmonds is going to be the starter. But I think Allen Robinson is the clear top option on this page. I think last year was an outlier for him in quite a bad offense. He is now going to what has been proven to be the best offense in the league after the Super
Yep.
Bowl win, especially with kind of the vacated targets from Robert Woods leaving, with the way the offense is changing with pushing the ball down the field more. Yes, he's not quite going to be the wide receiver one, but I think he's going to be a 1B to Cooper Kupp's 1A. We're going to go with Allen Robinson, and then we're just going to see what running backs come back to us.
Yeah, I think Allen Robinson there, a guy that, has done so much with so little at quarterback, a lot of his career. Now he's like with, Matthew Stafford,
Yeah.
who just keeps producing like season after season of just high yards totals and touchdown totals. And, Allen Robinson plus that is going to be another dangerous year for the Rams, which I'm sure brings a big smile to your face.
It absolutely does. The same as watching every good player seemingly leave the NFC for the AFC has put a lot of smile on my face. It's really nice to see that it's basically just the Rams and the Bucks going forwards.
They're running scared.
Yeah, essentially. That's what I like to hear. That's what I like to hear.
Nice. Speaking of running scared, Daniel Jones one stage last year was running. So if we go back on, obviously Daniel Jones has popped off there, the pick before us. We have set up near the top. We got Melvin Gordon and pretty solid running back Cordell Patterson. Could he repeat what he did last year? And then some solid wide receivers like Juju Smith-Schuster, a bit of the talk of the town now. He's gone to Kansas City.
Could you just show me all the running backs available, and we'll have a look if there's someone later down that I'm interested in. There is. I think what we're gonna do is we're gonna take Rashad Penny. No, maybe we're not. It's interesting drafting at this point in the year because I think Devin Singletary might be a hell of a value. He actually really showed out last year towards the end of the season, but there's a world in which the Bills draft a running back. I think they might be too smart an organization to do it high. But what we're going to do is we're going to take... can you show me the wide receivers again?
Yeah, of course.
Lots of options that I like there, and I've got lots of wide receivers. Let's go with Rashad Penny as RB2. Again, still young-ish, but has barely any usage in his legs. I think he's got the opportunity to be the RB1 in a run-heavy scheme in Seattle this year. There might be an opportunity for him to repeat because I think with the well is starting to run a little bit dry at this point.
Yeah, I think Rashad Penny's good, and actually, what I haven't heard a lot of people talking about with Rashad Penny is, obviously Seattle traditionally very run heavy, but now they've got Drew Lock, they're going to be even more run heavy because you can't assume he's going to light the world on fire like Russell Wilson did. So I think Rashad Penny's going to see a lot of work, and as a running back 2 in the 10th round,
fine. I think as well, I'm pretty confident they're going to end up trading for Baker. And Baker, as we've seen in the last few years, is incredible at handing the ball off to a running back. I'm quite happy with that.
I feel a bit sorry for Baker. Like if he left the Browns to go to the Seahawks, I'm like, come on. I was this gunslinging quarterback in college, and I've just been left as the handoff guy. Like, yeah, poor Baker. But let's see who else we got, on our board. A couple of tight ends creeping up again towards the top. You got Cole Kmet and Dawson Knox up there. Along with some interesting quarterback. Davis Mills standing out there maybe of the quarterbacks that's still there.
Yeah, Davis Mills is a very interesting option. I think I'm going to stick with the 3 quarterbacks that I've got for the time being. It feels like I should be loading up on running backs, but I'm not going to with this pick. I'm actually going to go with... The debate is essentially between, because we're now at the stage that you're not getting the alpha in an offense unless it's a very bad offense. Say, for example, maybe Christian Kirk in Jacksonville or Kenny Golladay with the Giants with his no touchdowns last year. So the 3 I'm choosing between here. We'll come back to running back later on. We'll hope Devin Singletary comes back. And if he doesn't, then we'll reevaluate. Juju in KC is interesting, although the way his contract is structured makes me think they're already thinking it might not work out. Michael Gallup as the number 2 option with Amari Cooper no longer there, but has just been paid. And the other one I'm looking at is Hunter Renfrow. Or actually potentially Kadarius Toney. I quite like the talent of Toney. you know what? With the stability in our wide receiver core and the youth, let's go with Tony for the potential upside of the joystick type player that we've seen succeed a little bit last year.
Yeah, I think that's good because you drafted so well at the start with your wide receivers. You don't have to pick someone like a Hunter Renfro who is a CF option. You can go, you know what? I can take Kadarius Toney and he might blow up, and again, it might just be pure value there.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you can afford to take the hit, because if he doesn't work out, I'm sure I have other wide receivers that are going to work out.
Yeah, and like with Juju Smith-Schuster as well there, if you pick Juju, if you pick Kadarius Toney and he doesn't pan out, he's still young, people will still maybe want. If you pick Juju and he doesn't work out, he's going nowhere. Like, this is his last chance already, I think.
Yeah, absolutely not. So let's see. Devin Singletary's come back. I can tell you without even looking at the board that that's who I'm going for.
Perfect. Not Will Fuller, no, you sure?
do you know what? Will Fuller I like, and I think he's going to go to Cleveland because I think he was going to follow Deshaun Watson anywhere. But Devin Singletary, with the way my team's been built, I think is the obvious pick here.
Yeah, Devin Singletary. We're just talking about him earlier. He's come back to us, so let's lock him in before he disappears. As we see Dalton Schultz coming off in the 12th round as well, and Singletary's mate Zach Moss as well coming off the board too. All right, Lewis, we're back on the board. We got Drew Lock, we got Robbie Anderson, we got DJ Chark, we got Cam Newton.
So what I would quite like to do here, because I'm pretty locked up at quarterback, I'm pretty locked up at wide receiver. I am tempted by Chark or Davis. But I think what I quite like to do at this point, I would quite like a tight end too behind Kittle. Could you show me the available tight ends? I can obviously
of course,
Irv Smith, but Gronk,
the only tight end at Minnesota, is he now, Irv Smith?
Yeah, he is. So he's very interesting, but there's a lot of interesting options on there. So I'm happy to wait. Could you show me the running backs?
Yeah, of course. Running backs. Khalil Herbert up there, Kenyon Drake, Trey Sermon we talked about earlier.
So I think we might just be. I think what we're going to do is we're going to take. We're going to go back to the wide receiver one last time.
Yes.
We're going to take DJ Chark because I think he's the alpha in Detroit and I like the talent. And then after that, we are going to take a tight end, and then we're just going to hammer running backs until the cows come home. And we're going to hope for a breakout from someone from the running back position.
Absolutely love it. Let's get DJ Chark in. Let's have our turnaround. Let's go our tight end. And then, Rich Cooling at Dynasty Island did the exact same thing. He said, I'm not taking any running backs until like round number 30. And then he just went running back the whole way to the end. And he said completely true to that.
It's a very rich thing to do, and it's something that I've seen him do plenty of times, that you just wait on them and you get your team together and then you just sit and take.
So obviously it's a strategy that works well for him as well. So it's starting to spread across the community too, as we're looking for. You said you're just looking for a tight end here, maybe?
So I think, because there's a few tight ends that I like, I think we're going to go Nyheim Hines as my RB3, I think. And then we'll see if potentially we want a tight end too the next time. But actually, there might be a running back I might reach on.
Nice. So let's get Nyheim Hines locked in, and hopefully he does, continue to do some good pass catching work over there at the Colts, as we're quickly back on the board again as Mecole Hardman and Sterling Shepard come off the board. Here we are. I've just got running back and tight end there. I can turn on quarterback and wide receiver if you want.
No, at this point, I'm going to ignore ADP a little bit. And what we're going to do is we're going to take Raheem Mostert, and we're going to hope that he succeeds in the McDaniel system, having gone over with him to Miami. The depth chart should be open there with just Chase Edmonds and Myles Gaskin, and I think he might be the most talented player there. So let's go Raheem Mostert and hope that he can provide some value very quickly.
Yeah, whenever Raheem Mostert plays, sometimes I'm like, this is the best running back in the league. And then he immediately gets injured.
And that's what I'm very interested in him. He's dropped off the radar completely, but an outside zone scheme really, really benefits speed.
Yeah.
And he's, I think, the fastest player in the league. So
yeah, he just looks like he's playing in fast forward sometimes compared to other people. So if he can stay
Absolutely.
healthy, I mean, what a steal this would be if he can stay healthy. So I love Raheem Mostert coming in there. In a system, it is a new team, but actually it's more of a new team for some of the other players coming in because he knows that system so well already.
Absolutely. And I think, when you get a couple of players brought in, like we've seen with Kyle Shanahan previously, just because more money is spent on one of them doesn't mean that they're going to be the one that starts. Tom Brady, by the way, in round 16 is an absolute steal there. I hadn't been looking at quarterback, but that ADP is going to change going forwards.
Yeah, he's going to rocket it because he rocketed down at the start of the like when I first started the show, and now he's coming right back up again.
Absolutely. If I'd been paying attention, Tom Brady would have been the pick about 3 rounds earlier.
Yeah.
So I think what we're going to do here, I think the value here is Gus Edwards. Just in a run-heavy scheme at the Ravens. A talent that I like. J.K. Dobbins might not stay healthy, and Gus Edwards might, but I think he can provide us value at running back.
Yeah, Gus the Bus locked in again. Really talented player, and he's probably going to get some usage, especially around the start of the season with Dobbins just coming off the injury. They're probably not going to give him all the workload right away. So Gus Edwards, especially at the start of the season, I think is great. As we're quickly back on the board again in round number 17.
Cool. So just 2 picks left. I think we're going to take our tight end 2 here. It's tempting. There's a few that I like actually. So Gerald Everett, I've liked the talent of, and now going to a good situation. Austin Hooper again. Very talented player that we've seen succeed in Atlanta, not so much in Cleveland, but now going to a pretty empty depth chart in Tennessee. But I'm actually going to go for Albert Okwuegbunam, or Albert O, as he's often referred to, because I think he's going to be the starter there in Denver. And again, it's a pretty young team that we put together in the skill positions. So let's take the upside pick of Albert O.
Love it. He didn't even blink saying Okwuegbunam either. Just absolutely nailed it first time. Love it. So let's get Albert O put in. That's that drama training. Just not a problem. Just right.
Well, do you know what? I had been mentally preparing myself to say his name correctly throughout. But I think it's always good players with a little bit of complication to their names. I think it's nice if you can actually make yourself learn how to say them as opposed to just getting the nickname in. It's actually not that complicated a name once you hear it said. So
yeah, you just break it down and you just it rolls off the tongue. Just like my favorite name in the NFL, past or present. Clinton Dix.
Clinton Dix is a really good one. Buckavius Mingo has always been a favorite of mine.
There is just so many just gems. It's much more entertaining over there in the US, isn't it, with names? You don't get many like that in the UK.
No, you don't at all. And it's so look at the value here is really interesting. Of we're in the real depths of things there. Marcus Mariota, I think, is probably a value there.
Yeah.
I'm going to get you to open up all of the positions when we look to draft.
Let's see who we have. Not much.
Not much. Could we go individually position by position so that I can have a look at the landscape across the board? Quarterback, it's hard to see anyone that's going to provide any value there. Tyler Huntley, I thought might get traded, but it doesn't seem to be the case. Kellen Mond is never going to start. So there's nothing there I'm particularly interested in. Can we have a look at running back?
Let's have a look at just running back. Jared Patterson up at the top there.
Again, not a huge amount of anything interesting there. There's a couple who have had value in the past, but no one who I think is going to have any more value going forwards. So let's go to wide receiver.
Let's have a look. Just wide receiver. You mean Antonio Brown is there? That is an interesting choice. Keneal Harry. I know Keneal Harry has talked about getting traded. There is some talent there, but
I can't see it working when he gets traded. I don't think it really matters to me where he is. I'm quite intrigued by a couple of options there. I know that I'm pretty set at wide receiver, but I can't see a running back that's going to provide any sort of value. So, and I'm not. Yeah, let's have a little look at tight end.
Yeah, let's have a wee look at tight end. We got Brevin Jordan, who's looked pretty good in there. Tyler Conklin has just been moved. Jared Cook's there. Is Jared Cook still in a contract at LA?
I think so, but actually there's an option lower down that should be much higher up the list. There's actually a couple, but I think we're going to go with David Njoku. I think he's probably the one name on this list that I think is going to provide some decent value, especially with the new situation in Cleveland. But you can always take him and then see if anyone's interested in the value surge and see if you can trade him on. But I think David Njoku has to be the pick here.
Yeah, he's got so much, every year I think people say, oh, David Njoku, he just needs to pull it all together. So, maybe this is the year, we've seen people break out leaders. So why not David Njoku?
It's him and OJ Howard that are always talked about as maybe this will be the time that it happens.
Yeah, so let's hope for our team here that it is David Njoku as we get him locked in as Callum Hill and I always like to scroll down and see the last, and Quintez Cephas.
There we go.
Out the draft. So let's have a little look at our team then. I'll sort of my position so we can go through it nicely. So we got, wow, look at those quarterbacks. Justin Herbert, Trey Lance, Derek Carr. God be pleased with that.
It's incredible as a core, isn't it? I potentially could have looked to take some other quarterbacks later on, and sometimes I do tend to just to take flyers on people, but I think I was pretty happy when sort of drafting through you to just stick with my core of those three and be very happy for the next few years.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we have a look at the running back room. You've got, AJ Dillon, Rashad Penny, Devin Singletary, Naheem Hines, Raheem Mostert, and Gus Edwards. For taking running backs, so late in the draft, you got some real talent there.
I think I'm pretty happy that I'll have people, I think there's a few names there you'd be pretty happy with as your RB2 or 3. Potentially I'd look to make a move afterwards if I felt my roster was ready to compete compared to everyone else. But I think that there's no one on there who I think is going to be completely irrelevant, which I think is the key thing for me. If I can look for 8 to 12 points from my running backs and then really get my value from my quarterbacks, then that's perfect for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, the wide receiver room just looks brilliant just looking at it, right? You got Jalen Waddle, Elijah Moore, Amari Cooper, Allen Robinson, Kadarius Toney, and DJ Chark. Great mix of youth and experience in there.
I think it's a really, really good core. I'd be super happy with this. Amari Cooper is my wide receiver 3, I think is pretty special, but it also means that when you've got receivers like Amari Cooper and Allen Robinson, actually, you have time for, a receiver like Kadarius Toney or even an Elijah Moore to have time to develop, which I think is quite nice to be able to look at your team and do. But there's a really, really nice mixture of youth and experience there with A-Rob. I'd be very happy with this as my wide receiver core.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, 3 super solid tight ends, one of them obviously an elite tight end and George Kittle. We've got David Njoku, and I have to let you say it one more time. You've got
Albert Okwuegbunam.
Wow, perfect. What a way to round off an amazing team. Lewis, thanks once more for coming on to join us on the Dynasty Hotseat. Remember, guys, you can find Lewis at Lewis Wood FF_UK.
Spot on.
And over at Kings Fantasy Sports.
Yep, and we're available at I'm just going to make sure that I actually get the thing right, otherwise Rich will kill me. We are available at KFantasy_sports. There's going to be a lot of stuff coming across the off season, including the release of our new draft guide. I'm the Dynasty lead there, so I'm going to be putting out some rookie profiles coming relatively soon so that you know who to be targeting in your rookie drafts. I really like looking at the late round running backs, as you've seen from my startup here. But the late round rookie running backs as well is a particular fascination of mine, looking at your Elijah Mitchells, your James Robinsons. How can we try and find the next one?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the kind of stuff that's going to turn a team around completely. Sometimes a player like Elijah Mitchell can take your potential rebuild a year ahead immediately.
Absolutely.
Definitely everyone keep your eyes peeled for that. And also, we've got on here our Hall of Flame board. If you've loved this episode, if you're watching on YouTube, or if you're listening online, get over to the YouTube channel and make sure you give this a thumbs up. The more thumbs up Lewis gets, the higher up the leaderboard he's going to get. It's super tight at the top. So hopefully we'll get to see Lewis one day on our Hall of Flame. So one more time, Lewis, I just want to say thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's really been a pleasure.
Brilliant. And until next week, just remind everyone, even though the hot seat cools off for a bit, remember you and your team should always stay lit. See you later. Bye.